you are probably facing a refrigerator filled with leftovers, including perhaps some leftover turkey. And you might be wondering what you can do with that besides make a truly epic and perfect leftover Thanksgiving turkey sandwich. Toasted bread, mayonnaise, little cranberry sauce, turkey, stuffing, corn pudding, or creamed green beans, whichever one you have, cream spinach even, little gravy on top. Some people put mashed potatoes. I do not agree. Squish it down, bite it. Oh, fresh lettuce. You have to have crispy romaine lettuce, a little salt, divide, little oregano, divide. But if you already did that last night at midnight, here's an alternative way to rehabilitate, rehydrate, get that turkey feeling so perfect and fresh again. It feels like anything but leftovers when you turn your leftover turkey into pulled turkey sliders in the style of pulled pork sliders. So I am talking about a juicy, slightly sweet, slightly spicy, little bit tangy barbecue sauce simmering around your turkey that you are going to pile onto sweet Hawaiian rolls with pickled Fresnos and shallots because you're just extra like that, and I got you. This was honestly inspired by the fact that I went honey habanero glazed turkey for this year's Thanksgiving, which was a really good call. It was freaking delicious, and I hope you tried it too. And I loved that sort of like sweet, like bright heat moment that was happening there, and so I wanted to carry it on, but in an even juicier format. Here's my leftover turkey. I just pulled it off the bone. I've got a little bit of dark meat, although that got eaten very quickly. Those legs went fast. I have some breast meat left over too. A mix is great. Whatever you have is great. And the really nice part about this recipe is we're going to focus on making the sauce, which is a really wonderful layered barbecue sauce that you can use for all different kinds of preparations. And once you have it made, you can really use however much of it you need for the quantity of turkey you have left over. So even if everyone gobbled your turkey and ate it all, and you just have like one tiny little half cup left, make a single portion just for you. Let's actually get started first with the pickled Fresno and shallots, because this is a feature of this recipe that even standalone is really nice to have in your arsenal for sandwich toppers, for salads, to just eat out of the jar. We know that your girl is a big fan of a Fresno chili. I find that it is like the perfect balance of, some of them get really hot, but in a tolerable way. Think of them like red jalapenos, but I find that their heat is a little bit sweeter, which I like, and I obviously like their bright red color. So I'm gonna put maybe I'll even do 4, because once I make these, you can keep them in a jar and just have them in your fridge ready to go. So you might as well make a nice batch while you're going. Just go ahead and pop your shallots out of their skins, and then we're gonna put a nice thin half moon or round slice on here as well. I like a relatively thin slice on my shallots. I want them to have some texture after they've been, oh, I should have heated the liquid, shoot. Okay, before I slice all my way through there, hang on. I have a couple different ways that I like to pickle shallots, chilies, etc. I have a paleo method that I really love, which is just equal parts apple cider vinegar and apple juice, which you can definitely use. Today, I am going to go slightly more traditional, using a half a cup of apple cider vinegar, a half a cup of water, and then you can just throw a little pinch of sugar, a little pinch of salt in. Something that makes these sort of pickled condiment toppings so special is the way they are nuanced and layered with flavor. They're a little salty, a little vinegary, a little sweet. So play with that and adjust how sweet or salty you want it accordingly. A little pinch of salt, maybe a little more than a little pinch of salt. They should be, you know, it's pickling liquid, so don't think of it as though all the sugar or all the salt we're putting in here is going to be soaked up by your veg and con. Oh, that was unintentional. That's okay. It's gonna be fine. Wow. Well, you know, I did say I wanted a balance of flavors in this mix, and the sauce itself is going to be lovely. Let's see. Let's see how this tastes. Actually perfect. You know, in a normal world, go for like a tablespoon. And we're just going to get this simmering. Once it comes up to a simmer, we'll pour the hot liquid over our cut veg, let them steep until it cools, and then you'll be left with perfectly crisp, tender, flavorful, delicious pickling veggies to top your sandwich with. Back to the shallots. Like I was saying, I just want kind of a thin enough slice that it's really going to get max surface area, so all of your onions end up nice and pickled, but don't lose their texture. We don't want it to totally fall apart and melt in the hot liquid. Our shallots and our chilies are ready to go. Okay, that's good enough. Bring it to a simmer. Let it get nice and hot, which it is. So steamy in here. And then pour it over your Fresnos and shallots. That's all there is to it. Literally, just give it a quick stir so you make sure everything is submerged in the pickling liquid. And I like to toss the Fresnos over the onions too so that everything's getting a little bit of that heat passing through. And you're just gonna let it cool. And as it cools, the peppers and the shallot will tenderize. They'll get a little softer, a little crunchy too. Some of the bite from the onion will leave us and be replaced by a little sweet, salty, tangy pickle flavor. Let's get started with the barbecue sauce because you're gonna wanna let this simmer a little bit. The more you simmer barbecue sauce, the more the flavors intensify, they blend together beautifully. Obviously, the base of the barbecue sauce must be onion. And I like 2 nice yellow onions here. Ta-da! Get yourself, let's say 2 tablespoons of butter to start with. I like a little butter to start my onion fry for this barbecue sauce. It gives it a little extra richness, a little extra caramelly, sort of milky beginning. 2 tablespoons of butter into our Dutch oven. You want like a nice heavy bottom skillet or ideally sort of deep dish like this so that we can build this sauce and have it have a place that it can simmer and bubble and not make your kitchen a total war zone. Just come observe the butter melting because that's a really nice experience for us. Roughly half your body weight in ounces of onions is what you're looking for here. Go ahead and give them a quick stir. And I will say, there are few smells in your culinary arsenal better than butter and onion cooking together. It's beyond. While those start to saute, I will let them cook their first release of liquid without salt. Then I will go back and salt them up a little bit. While we're waiting for that to happen though, I will go ahead and mince up some garlic. Just go ahead and pop them out of their skins. You can be a little rough with the squish because we're just gonna be mincing this garlic up anyway, so an initial pressing actually speeds that process along. I'm pretty much using 3 large cloves, but I had that one little tiny guy left and I figured I might as well throw him in here too. But you can customize to your level of garlic preference. Again, this recipe is all gonna be pureed together, so nothing needs to be too precise. You can really just give it a quick chop like so. And then I'm gonna go once more through just to give it a little bit more definition. We can go ahead and add it into our onion mix. So now that the onions are starting to soften up, they're actually developing a bit of color too. I am gonna season with a bit of salt. And actually, I want a little bit more fat in the pan just so you don't get too much color all at once. So maybe 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I always like that combo of the oil and the butter so that you get flavor from the butter and a little bit of protection and insulation against burning from the oil. All right, these are looking gorgeous, getting nice and golden brown. Onions and garlic are sauteing away. Now we're going to start to build the rest of this barbecue style sauce. It is an amalgamation of what I love about so many different barbecue styles. I'm putting a little mustard in, I'm getting a little heat in there, I'm getting a little sweet in there with some molasses and some brown sugar. And realistically, that makes it not authentic to anywhere, but it's authentic to me and very delicious. I highly recommend. Apple cider vinegar, we have it obviously in our pickled veg too, but I love it in the barbecue sauce to give it plenty of tang, a little Dijon mustard. I'm using some strained tomatoes, just pureed tomatoes. It's great. I'm going to use a little Worcestershire sauce to give it that sort of like nuance, that little bit of fermentation feeling. It just makes it a much richer sauce. Molasses. Why? Because we're in holiday time and I feel like, you know, ginger snap cookies and molasses cookies and all that jazz. There's a richness to molasses that we don't use nearly enough. So molasses felt like a good way to add a lot of body to the sauce too. But also brown sugar. And then I had one lonely habanero left from my honey habanero glazed turkey. So damn it, it's going in the sauce because I like it spicy, but you can leave it out if you don't need it. If you can and you have the time, definitely let these onions luxuriate in their hot oil butter bath because it will build so much additional rich flavor into the sauce. It just gets really, like, you see the color developing. There's this wonderful sugary sweetness that happens to onions as they caramelize, obviously. And yeah, it's just the body of the sauce really just goes way up if you can allow the onions this time. They look really lovely and golden brown to me now. So let's start adding in our other layers of flavor. First up, 1.5 cups or thereabouts of tomato sauce. Give that a quick stir. And you can zhuzh as you go, you know. That is the beauty of a soup or a sauce, is there's just so much adjusting that can happen in the process, so much personalizing as you go. So don't be afraid to taste and tweak and change things up. Let me bring this pot to you. We'll put all the stuff in and we'll bring it back to the stove. Okay, so into the pot with our tomato sauce, I'm going to add a little bit of molasses. Let's say 1/3 cup to start. See how that tastes. And also a tablespoon or 2 of light brown sugar. The molasses obviously does have sweetness to it, but it's more there for like a little like malty tang, and our nod to the holidays. Oh, that looks so pretty. Okay, I'll wait to stir until you can see what I'm doing. A little squeeze of Dijon mustard. I'm gonna go 2 tablespoons of that. Worcestershire sauce, Worcestershire. Start with a tablespoon. You can always add more, but a little goes a long way. And then let's go for 1/2 cup of apple cider vinegar or thereabouts. And come see as I stir it up again. Let's taste this. See how we're liking it. Oh, that is delightful. I want a little bit more apple cider vinegar, and I want a tiny bit more Dijon mustard. And it's not too sweet, which I really like, but I do kind of, let's see. You could use date syrup here, guys. Okay, this is a little too bitter to do more of that. Date syrup would be the right move there if you wanted just a little bit of sweetness with less bitterness. So I'm gonna add a touch more brown sugar, and now I think we should be in business. But I will say the right amount of bitterness, which was the first addition of molasses, is perfect. It makes it feel almost like it's been like barrel aged. This is a very fancy sauce that's literally just throwing things in a pot. Okay, fabulous. That is delicious. Back to the stove. Let's let it simmer like 10-15 minutes. Just to let all the flavors blend together, and then we'll puree it, and then we'll add the turkey to it. And then we'll build this glorious little sandwich situation. Oh, no! Habanero. Don't forget about habanero, guys. All you're gonna do is give it a little, I knew it was missing something. I was like, what am I missing? I'm missing heat. I split it down the center just so it can infuse its spice into the sauce. Drop it in. Stir. And then let it go to town. Okay, so one thing that we're just gonna highlight again, because it bears repeating over and over, is you always wanna taste as you cook. You never wanna be putting your meal down on the table and only have tasted your food then, because there's no chance to correct. Ultimately, you cook for you. You should make it the way that you like it. So taste all the time. I want a little extra butter in this mix. I want it a little richer. The reason I'm cooking at this point and simmering and sauteing all of the flavoring elements together is to cook a little of the rawness out of that tomato sauce base. And this little extra nub of butter is going to help just enrich the whole situation. Please look. There's our little habanero floating around. Delightful. Damn, that is delicious. I'm just gonna partially cover this pot. I don't want too much of the liquid to disappear. There still needs to be some body to the sauce, but I do wanna let it concentrate, and I also just don't want it to splatter all over my kitchen. So speaking of sampling as you go, I just went ahead and tasted our pickled Fresno and shallot combination, and it was a little raw tasting to me, so I'm reheating everything together on the stove with that pickling liquid just to bring it back up to heat and let it have a little bit longer in a hot bath of liquid, and that should tenderize everything up to perfection. Guys, I can't stop eating this barbecue sauce. It's so delicious. Maybe it's a soup. Maybe it's the barbecue sauce that eats like soup. It's so good. Okay, so now these have been heated up again. We will let them soak and chill again, but I can already tell, like much softer, much more supple resulting pickle, which is exactly what we wanted. Let's check on our barbecue sauce. I think that should also be ready to go. Oh, it's really reduced. Come see. It's beautifully reduced down. It is nice and thick and saucy. Let's go ahead and puree and toss it together with our leftover turkey and make these sandwiches. Oh, we are all set up with our King's Hawaiian rolls. Guys, there is no slider without a sweet baby bread. When it comes to blending a hot soup or stew like we have here, an immersion blender is always top choice, just because you don't have to dump it into a blender and blend away, but you can use your blender and work in batches and just make sure that you have a vent if it's steamy like this so that you don't build up the steam in the blender itself, which could be very dangerous. Go ahead and remove your chili for now. Getting nice and smooth. Okay, your tomato-based, gorgeous barbecue sauce is ready to go. You can go ahead and add your chili back in, because why not just let it continue to infuse the flavor of this sauce. And now it's just a question of how much turkey meat you're using. If I'm gonna add all of this in, I might actually have the right amount of sauce. If you're using a little less turkey, go ahead and reserve half of this. You can let it cool, then freeze it, keep it in your freezer for a rainy day or an easy dinner. Okay, leftover shredded turkey that I pulled off the bone just into like relatively bite-sized pieces like so. Obviously, it's a leftover, so it's a little dried out, which is why this method of reheating in the juicy sauciness of this barbecue sauce is such a good technique. The idea is to have sauce that coats, but not sauce that drips. Like we're gonna want as much sauce as possible to stay on the meat so that it really can just mountain and pile up onto our sweet rolls. And that is exactly what we're getting. Look at this. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Okay, back to the stove, reheating our way to leftover perfection. And at this point, we're really not looking to lose more liquid, so I'm gonna cap it. Let the steam work its magic. Our turkey is beautifully heated through. And one thing to say, guys, is if you wanna set it here, cap it, it'll stay warm nice and long. If you're doing like a little buffet or having people over again, or people are still at your house, this is a really nice kind of set it and forget it meal. You can reheat it easily. It's nice hot, it's nice warm. It's even nice as leftovers again, but there won't be any of those because we are about to dig in on this glory. Okay, Hawaiian sweet rolls, very soft, very plush, very luscious bread. Look at that, so spongy, so squishy. Which is why I am actually not a huge fan of needing to toast these particular types of buns. If you like a toasty bread, you totally can. I just happen to think the soft, squishy nature of them is part of the appeal. And because this isn't, it's obviously really generously sauced, but it's not like a running away wet dripping sauce. It actually like soaks into this bread beautifully. Go ahead and grab yourself a mound of our turkey, little piles. And obviously you can do this on real, normal sized burger buns too if you prefer. But there's something so bite-sized and delectable about doing it this way. And then your pickled shallots and Fresno go right over top for a wonderfully juicy crunch of tang and sweet and acid. Oh my goodness. We are living today. Moment of truth. Let's see how we did. Talk about an easy meal that makes the most with the least. We literally dumped a bunch of stuff in this pot, pureed it together, folded it over leftover turkey, and double extended the joy of this meal. I feel like I've already waxed poetic about this sauce, but let me tell you, when it is coating already really flavorful, delicious turkey with that spicy, sweet, slightly rich, but like really still tangy from the tomatoes and everything going on, and the mustard and the apple cider vinegar, topped with the crunch of these pickled veggies, and lovingly caught by pillowy bread. I hope you had a very happy Thanksgiving. I hope you enjoyed moments of supreme indulgence and lots of fun. Good laughs, good food. I cannot promise that you will look cute eating this, but I can promise you will love Every bite.